We are in store for 71 laps around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Previous winners include Max Verstappen again for the past 3 years. Previous pole sitters have been Charles Leclerc in 2023, Max Verstappen in 2022, and Valtteri Bottas in 2021. Let's jump right into it with our predictions. Who do you think will be podium pusher of the weekend this time out in Mexico?
Podium pusher of the weekend, I've gone with Max Verstappen. He had an incredible weekend in Austin, won the sprint race, and the upgrades just seemed to really suit his driving style. Seemed like the car was handling a lot better, and whenever Max has a car that agrees with him, there's not a lot that stands in between him and winning.
I have gone with Liam Lawson as my podium pusher of the weekend, and perhaps there's a little bit of recency bias from us seeing him do well in Austin and thinking he'll do it again in Mexico. Perhaps there's a little bit of me being ready to predict Daniel Ricciardo to be podium pusher in Mexico, and because I don't get to do it, I have chosen Liam Lawson. But AlphaTauri was rapid here last year, and I know things have changed within the team. They haven't seemed to be as good this year. But the AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso, maybe now V-Carb trend has always been kind of good to start the year. A big old dip in the middle, and then for like the last 6 races, they come out of nowhere and finish like P6 every race. It seemed like that's how it always went when Pierre Gasly was there, and that's just the season trend of AlphaTauri and maybe now V-Carb. So I think we might be seeing V-Carb starting to get back towards the front of the midfield. Obviously, they had a much improved weekend in Austin. I think that could continue here in Mexico, but also Liam has a lot of momentum as well. He had an incredible re-debut in Austin, and so I'm going to officially predict Liam Lawson as podium pusher of the weekend this weekend. Who do you think will be the back marker on the grid this weekend in Mexico?
I've gone with Yuki Tsunoda. And reason behind this, Yuki kind of had a tough weekend in Austin. Probably not as good as he wanted it to be. Probably frustrated a little bit. We heard some of that on the team radio in this past weekend. Facing some pressure with a new teammate he obviously wants to perform well against, but also maybe there's a possibility of him getting a Red Bull seat. I actually don't think there is any possibility, but people are saying there are. Maybe he's been told there is, even if there isn't. I don't know.
Well, there's rumors that he might be doing some Red Bull testing at the end of the year, so you can maybe throw that in there.
It's true, but who else would be doing the Red Bull testing? I mean, the drivers that are in the Red Bull family. So I don't know.
I have gone for Kevin Magnussen, almost for the exact opposite reason, because I refuse to believe that Kevin Magnussen can have 2 good weekends in a row. It just doesn't happen to him in his career. Last year at Mexico, he crashed out in pretty heavy fashion, which 50-50 if it was his fault or not, and then had a great weekend here in Austin. It kind of came undone during the race, but that wasn't really his fault. Haas looked great, but I expect Nico Hülkenberg to be the driver taking advantage of that more so than Kevin Magnussen, especially if they continue to have that momentum, continue to be in that fight with V-Carb, and V-Carb is better as well, and then Kevin Magnussen not being up there could really hurt that team. And so I've gone for Kevin Magnussen as back marker this weekend. Who do you think will qualify on pole this weekend in Mexico?
I have gone with Carlos Sainz. I think Ferrari, obviously, they had a fantastic weekend out in Austin. Carlos looked he was calm, cool, and collected, and he drove 2 great races. Qualified pretty decently in both qualifying sessions as well, and Ferrari just looks fast right now, and they're bringing upgrades this weekend. So,
well, obviously, I think that Ferrari has a great shot at pole because I've gone for Charles Leclerc on pole position. We picked the front row from last year, so maybe we're expecting some Ferrari magic in qualifying once again. It's hard for me to predict against Charles Leclerc on pole position if there's like even a reasonable chance that he could qualify on pole. It just makes sense in my mind that Charles Leclerc is going to whip out the fastest lap at the end of qualifying and get that pole position. We've seen him do it in Mexico before. He's riding that momentum from Austin. We'll see if those Ferrari upgrades bring any additional pace, but maybe they don't even need them. And, maybe they try them in practice and they don't even work out, and Ferrari could still be the fastest car. So Charles Leclerc is my locked-in prediction for pole position this weekend. Let's keep moving. Who do you think will finish in 3rd place for the Mexican Grand Prix?
3rd place, I've been debating this one for a long time.
been debating it so much you left the prep sheet blank.
I did. But you know what? That's okay. I'm gonna go with Charles Leclerc. I think Charles will finish in third place. I think it's gonna be Max and the Ferraris up at the front. I'm sorry, Lando. I'm sorry, McLaren. But I really think that's who we're going to be watching this weekend.
I've gone for Lando Norris. I don't have to apologize to McLaren because I think that Lando Norris still has a chance to finish on the podium. It was quite interesting to see those McLaren upgrades not really agree with the drivers this weekend. It seemed like, I wouldn't necessarily say they were downgrades, but it seemed like they clearly didn't have the dominant package that they went into that 4-week break with. So we will see if they have a deeper understanding of them this weekend. Obviously, it's not a sprint weekend, so they'll have more time in practice sessions to try different setups, see if they can get them to agree more with the drivers in the car. Who do you think will finish second this weekend?
I was debating this for a long time, but I think Max is going to finish P2 in Mexico. He's been very, very good around Mexico, but there's one driver that I think has more win in him this season. I think he's going to come this weekend. So
hopefully it's not one more win in his career. Not to foreshadow who I think your pick is going to be. I've gone with Charles Leclerc in P2, another patented Charles Leclerc pole to not win, but not going to trash on that because that statistic, I've said it many times, more shows how good of a qualifier he is than how bad he was at race pace, because a lot of those Ferraris had no business winning. I truly don't know if the Ferrari is going to be a race-winning car this weekend, because you look back across the season, yes, they were probably a race-winning car at the beginning of the year. Obviously, we saw them win a couple races, and then when they won Monza, they probably weren't the fastest package there. They just had the better strategy and an absolutely wonderful drive from Charles Leclerc. In Austin, they were dominant, and like, it came out of nowhere. They brought no upgrades. All the other teams did bring upgrades. And yes, they were quick before the break. You know, Singapore, they looked fairly good there during the race after they messed up qualifying. Baku, you know, Charles almost won that race after qualifying on pole. So they looked quick, but that domination came out of nowhere. And so I really don't know what to expect from Ferrari right now. I do think they could potentially still be faster than McLaren. But not to spoil anything, I just think the driver who will finish P1 is just too good around Mexico for me to overlook that part of the equation. So I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc in P2. Who do you think will win the Mexican Grand Prix this weekend?
Carlos Sainz. I'm predicting Carlos Sainz to win the Mexican Grand Prix. Carlos, he just seemed to have a quietly good weekend in Austin. I think he's ready to prove to Ferrari they made the wrong call, letting him walk to Williams. And I think he's just he just seems comfortable this weekend, which I feel like I haven't seen from a driver in a long time since Max Verstappen was winning everything last year. Carlos seemed very comfortable, and I think he's going to qualify and pole and win the race.
But I have gone with Max Verstappen in P1. It is very hard for me to predict against him in Mexico, and if Red Bull's car continues to be on this upward trajectory, if the upgrades are still working, then I'm sure they'll be at the front of the field. We saw Max perform well in qualifying and race conditions last week in Austin, so Max Verstappen is my official P1 prediction this weekend. Brandon, what is your one push-in prediction for the Mexican Grand Prix?
I am going with Carlos Sainz finishing P6 or higher in every single session this weekend. All 3 practices, qualifying, and the race. Obviously, I've predicted him to be on pole and win those 2, but P6 or higher in all 3 practice sessions. That's what I'm going with.
My push-in prediction is that Franco Colapinto outperforms Alex Albon over the course of the weekend. I don't want to overreact or say anything too bold, but Franco Colapinto could be exposing Alex Albon here. He's been performing quite well, and this whole time we've been saying, wow, look at how much Alex Albon is outperforming his teammates, just dragging this Williams up the field. Okay, his teammates were Nicholas Latifi and Logan Sargent, and not to bash those drivers, way better of a driver than I ever will be at our local go-kart track, but they're not the cream of the crop in Formula One. And now Franco Colapinto comes in, and he's kind of sticking it to Alex Albon some of these sessions, some of these races. So I'm very interested to see how Alex Albon compares to Carlos Sainz next year when we have a full season of Alex against this seasoned veteran driver who is a proven race winner. But for this weekend, I think that Franco Colapinto will outperform Alex Albon across the weekend. That's kind of vague. I'm leaving it that way purposefully after making a horrible mistake with my push-in prediction last weekend. So we will discuss in our recap what I have to do to get that point. But the fans at PVK_96_ says the podium is Max, Lando, and a Ferrari, which is certainly possible. And at Nathan_Godfrey_10 says the race will be red flagged, which we haven't seen in quite some time, but we did see at Mexico last year when Kevin Magnussen put it in the wall, so not certainly out of the equation. But I think those are some great push-in predictions this weekend.
They are, and they could all come true at the same time.
They absolutely could. All right, that is all we have got for our predictions for the Mexican Grand Prix. Before we get out of here and leave these lovely people, Brandon, what are your parting podium thoughts?
We're in the middle of a triple header. That's exciting. We get 1 week off, and then we have another triple header, which is super exciting. We've got some great races coming up. I'm really pumped. Las Vegas, second year in a row. That's happening. That's going to be exciting. Mexico, Abu Dhabi. Great venues, great races. Good time to be a Formula One fan.
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm like 99% sure it's a 3-week break between triple headers. I'm pretty sure it is. So we might have a long time without Formula One again, that we're just here talking to each other about things that haven't happened. So it is unfortunate. But that'll be okay. We'll be here to help you survive and help all of the fans survive as well. Even if we have 3 weeks with no Formula One, it will be okay. And we don't have to worry about that now because we still have 2 more weeks of back-to-back Formula One, starting with the Mexican Grand Prix. Thank you so much for watching or listening to another episode of the Podium Pushers podcast. We appreciate you watching or listening. It means so much that we get to do this every single week. And for all of your likes, subscribes, and comments and reviews, they mean the world to us, and we're so appreciative. Be sure to follow us wherever you are watching or listening. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, wherever you listen to podcasts. We are all there, and we will see you in the next one.
See ya.